Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to Real Talk Bougie, guys. We are going to talk about something. Sarah Boone entered a motion into the court in the hearing on August 14th. She was requesting a neuropsychologist to help her with her case, and she's looking for the money allocations for that. Let's get into it. Let's read about it and see what's going on here. And then we will look at what exactly she's asking for and why that might be relevant to her case and all of the things. Like we're just going to go ahead and get into it and see if we can make heads or tails of sis, what's going on here? Okay. Some of you may have already seen this already, but this was entered into the record on the 14th, and yesterday we went all the way through the 14th, and towards the end she handed this to the judge. It was a motion for payment of costs. Okay, so it was a motion for payment of costs. So this is what she handed the judge. So if you were with us yesterday, Sunday, we watched the whole entire hearing from the 14th. And towards the end, she hands this to the judge. She says that she has a motion. Okay. It's a motion for payment to assist the defendant in preparation for defense. Comes now defendant Sarah Boone, by way of pro se, respectfully moves this honorable court to enter an order authorizing the state of Florida to incur costs of the following discovery expenses: reasonable fees for a neuropsychologist. These services include the review of documents, physical evidence, writing reports, travel, and trial testimony. As grounds, the defendant states following: defendant is charged with second-degree murder. That's A. Defendant has been adjudged indigent for costs. Defendant has no income and cannot afford services of a neuropsychologist. A genuine issue exists related to this case, which will require the assistance of an expert witness in the field of neuropsychology. The defendant is without funds and doesn't have the ability to pay the costs associated with the expert to assist the defense of this matter. Therefore, requires the assistance of the state of Florida to guarantee protection of her right to the process and effective assistance of counsel. I think she'd already mentioned that she is indigent. That was B. And C, she says she has no income and can't afford. E, again, for the third time, she states she's without funds and doesn't have the ability to pay. I think we understand that. Counsel has contacted neuropsychologist Dr. Hyman Eisenstein. The defendant intends to engage the services of Dr. Hyman Eisenstein, a graduate of the Chicago Division of Biological Science and a Pritzker School of Medicine, and works in Miami Beach, specializing in psychology. The defendant seeks permission to allocate funds for Dr. Hyman's services at a rate of $300 per hour, etc. She goes into the cost performing on the case expert travel time billed at 125 with a cap of 15,000, to include expenses but not limited to travel, lodging, mileage, postage, shipping, all the things. Defendant cannot properly prepare for trial without expert analysis. Defendant cannot properly prepare for trial until expert analysis is complete. Defendant has attempted to request this evaluation through her previous appointed attorney without success, based on several factors, to include the attorney not being able to locate the proper specialist in this field, the willingness of the neuropsychologist to work on the case, and the authorization of the JAC to pay for the neuropsychologist. Defendant believes that her pattern of behavior stems from a lifetime of mental and physical abuse and believes that she cannot have a proper defense without a neuropsychologist who can evaluate her exposure to this trauma. A neuropsychologist specializes in the understanding and relationship between the brain and behavior. Given the complexity of the defendant's mental health history, it is critical to assess her cognitive functioning and mental state to determine how these factors may have influenced her actions. Interesting wording. Wherefore, the defendant, Sarah Boone, by way of pro se, respectfully requests this to the Honorable Court. In conclusion, the payment of costs and appointing neuropsychologists to assist the defendant in preparation of defense. And then she basically certifies it. Okay, let's get to this part right here. This is the response. So that was filed, of course, on the 14th, as you can see. It was stamped in, right? It was stamped in on the 14th, as you can see right here, right? 8/14/24, stamped in and signed by Deputy Clerk. We have the response that was filed by, I believe, the JAC, the Justice Administrative Commission, right here. Okay. Make it as big as possible so you guys can see. And this was filed the following day. So maybe they were in the court and they heard her motion because they got back right away. So comes now, this is they've listed the case, okay? And they say comes now the Justice Administration Commission by and through the undersigned attorney files this response to the above cited motions as follows. The defendant is seeking authorization of $15,000, $30 an hour, $125 for travel. Based on the JAC's records, the court previously authorized $3,000 at a rate of $200 an hour for the defense mental health expert. So they're giving you, a percentage. They basically have approved about 20% of the original ask. She's asking for 15,000, they've approved 3,000. So, okay, it's better than nothing, right? And to be used at a rate of 200 per hour or less, right? JAC may only pay for due process costs pursuant to sections 29.007, 27.40, and 27.5304 Florida statutes. As directed by Section 27425 Florida statute, the General Appropriations Act, are due process services are subject to Florida statutes and JAC contract policies and procedure. JAC objects to any compensation rate that in excess of established rates. The rate for a psychological evaluation is a flat $350 fee. For other services, the established rates for medical doctors and psychologists are as follows. In court testimony, 170, 170 per hour thereafter. Waiting to testify, 85. Waiting to testify, deposition, 72.50. Travel time, 72.50. Out of court services, 160 per hour. The defendant has the burden to show the particularized need for any additional mental health expert. The defendant needs to show the services of the expert is necessary for the defense of the case. The enunciated by the Florida Supreme Court, the party seeking due process costs has the burden to establish the particularized need for due process services and prejudice arising from the denial of the due process services. The determination of whether to appoint an expert is within the broad discretion of the trial court. An indigent defendant must show the trial court that there exists a reasonable probability both that the expert would be of assistance to the defense and the denial of the expert assistance would result in fundamentally unfair trial. The defendant also has the burden to establish diligent efforts to obtain services within or closer to the rates established by the law, assuming the defendant establishes the particularized need for a specialized mental health expert. The rate sought is consistent with the rates authorized by similar experts in other cases. If any providers desire direct payment, the JAC procedures require vendor to execute the appropriate contract and follow JAC's billing and audit procedures to obtain payment. JAC does not request to participate in any hearing set in this matter. Should the court desire JAC participation, JAC requests to appear through communication equipment and can be reached toll free. Wherefore, the JAC report, should the court grant the defendant's motion, also include in its order the specific due process services authorized, as well as the hourly and per unit rate and maximum fees authorized, and that the provider be paid in accordance with the rates, terms, conditions set forth by Florida statutes and the JAC contract policies and procedures. So basically, um, just to kind of go back into this, so Sarah is requesting the help of a neuropsychologist. Sarah is looking for reasons, she's looking for ways, she's looking for information to maybe get her defense lined up with it wasn't my fault. It may be she's looking for a justifiable reason as to why maybe she would have behaved in a certain manner as it states in her letter. But at the end of the day, even if you have a mental illness, even if you have a trauma, um it's going to be hard for her to wiggle out of that video that she created where she taunted George in his what may or may not have been his final moments or final hours, definitely his final day. Okay? She's looking for reasons that may justify her horrible behavior as stated in this letter. Let's see what it says here again. The neuropsychologist specializes in understanding the relationship between the brain and behavior. Given the complexity of the defense's mental health history, it is critical to assess her cognitive functioning and mental state to determine how these factors may have influenced her actions. Wherefore, the defendant, Sarah Boone, by way of pro se, respectfully requests. So, look, I don't know that there's anything that she's going to be able to find or factor in that a neuropsychologist can say, well, because of this, this is why she acted that way. Okay, that might make sense, but that's not going to excuse you. There's plenty of people who are suffering from trauma, mental illness, and many different things who are not taking people out and who are not sitting for second degree murder. And unfortunately, the amount that I don't know that having a $15,000 budget to make that happen is going to help her. Clinical neuropsychologists perform neuropsychological exams to help you and your healthcare team understand how different areas of the system of your brain are working. Several different task-oriented tests assesses specific cognitive functions. Um, let's see. I just don't know how it's going to help her. I mean, like I said, she can go to as many specialists as she wants. I just don't think, on top of that, if you factor in alcohol, I don't think she's going to get a skate. I don't think she's going to get a walk. I don't really think that it's going to give her what she thinks it's going to give her. You can't flood the court with excuses um, to get off on what happened. I think it's a nice try. I think she has to do her best to put on a defense. I just don't know if that's going to be the winning defense for her, trying to line up a bunch of medical specialists to qualify and quantify her trauma and mental illness to give her some sort of a defense as to why repeatedly the history that was Sarah and George resulted in George's family having to plan a funeral and George's children not having a father. So I'm not really sure if this is the angle that Sarah's going with. I'm going to say good luck on that one. I don't know that that one's going to work. Anyway, you guys let me know down below. That was the most recent motion from Sarah Boone, sitting in Orange County jail, awaiting trial on her second degree murder case of George Torres. Let me know what you think down below. Make sure to comment. If you're new here, welcome. I'm so glad that you came through. Tell me what you think about this motion. JAC got right back on it. I don't know if the judge is going to rule on it um, in between the next session of court, but I didn't see anything yet. But if I do see something, I will definitely touch back bases. But again, that's the latest. That was filed on the 14th. The response from JAC was the 15th, and I don't see anything from the judge yet. So he might be waiting to do that in open court, since I think that has been kind of how he's been addressing most of her motions, but we'll see how that goes. Anyway, guys, you guys comment down below. Make sure to subscribe, and I will see you next time. I'll see you next time. Thank you. Take care. Bye.